in the newspapers this morning. As I mentioned, we begin with the Daily Nation. The pun, it seems, is intentional. Mosquito nets deal bites PS KEMSA bosses, and several faces on the front page here. Let me just zoom in a little further so we can get a better sense. There we go. And the faces on the front page of the Daily Nation are these ones out. Dr. Josephine Mburu, I beg your pardon, sacked as PS Public Health and Professional Standards. Suspended is Ms. Terry Ramadhani, the KEMSA Chief Executive Officer. Dismissed is Mr. Daniel Rono, former KO South MP, sacked as KEMSA Chairman. Appointed Dr. Mutava Mulwa, named the acting Chief Executive of KEMSA, and appointed as well is Mr. Irungu Nyakera, named Chairperson of the reconstituted KEMSA board. Now, what is the background to this these changes in leadership at KEMSA? Well, a 4 billion shilling global fund tender for the supply of 10 million mosquito nets to help poor Kenyans fight malaria has led to a bloodbath at both KEMSA and the Health Ministry after President Ruto sent packing top officials, some of whom he appointed, and he sent them packing over alleged impropriety. More on page 7 of the Daily Nation. I see inset is also an image of the headline story over the reported impropriety in the management of donor funds. KEMSA caught up in new 4 billion shilling scandal in that Sunday evening interview at State House Nairobi with various media houses, including NTV's Lofty Matambo. The president said he would be taking action. This appears to be the action he promised. Let's take a look at the very top of the page here. And more pain for hustlers as kerosene diesel prices jump. Poor households will feel the pinch of higher kerosene prices following the removal of subsidy on the product, raising the cost by 9.4%. In the latest review of petroleum prices for May 15th to June 14th, the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority has raised the price of kerosene by 15.19 a litre to 161.13 in Nairobi. The subsidy on diesel and kerosene has been removed, EPRA stated in a press statement on Sunday. So costly, up by 15 shillings, the amount by which the cost of a litre of kerosene has increased in Nairobi. Diesel prices rose by 6 shillings. Top of the class, University of Nairobi makes list of the world's 2,000 leading universities. The University of Nairobi is the only Kenyan university listed among the world's top 2,000 universities in the latest rankings released yesterday by the Center for World University Rankings. On the equivalent of the ticker on the Daily Nation, I see they've highlighted Thuge, nominated as next CBK governor, and for smart business, how witchcraft ritual on worker backfired on giant transport firm. Transporter to pay 450,000 to ex-employee. It's subjected to a demeaning ritual following theft of a computer gadget. Sounds like an interesting read. So they tell us to look further inside, to flip through the paper and find that report. Okay, let's take a look at the Business Daily before I invite my panelists to weigh in on the cost of petroleum products. A gentleman muddied by dam scandal set for CBK, and that is the Business Daily. Here we go. The gentleman in question is Kamau Thuge. Picture of him there if you're not familiar. And this report by Dominic Omondi tells us that Thuge was Treasury PS when Kenya took first $2 billion US Eurobond expected to address dollar shortage woes. How pump prices will look like after Ruto's 16% VAT. This I'm very interested in. Let me zoom in a little closer so that we can see those numbers better. There we go. Zoom in even further. Okay, I think that's the maximum. A landed cost, super, diesel, kerosene, distribution and storage, margins, taxes and levies plus the VAT. It means super petrol will be retailing at 196 shillings per litre, diesel 181, kerosene 173. Current pricing has been used for computations, and the source is EPRA. If the proposal goes through, petrol will be shillings shy of the 200 per litre mark. And this report compiled by John Mutua, pump prices, he tells us, will nearly breach the 200 shilling per litre mark if Parliament approves a proposal by President William Ruto's administration to double value-added tax on fuel in a plan that could make Kenya have the highest prices in the region. An analysis, they tell us, by Business Daily shows that a litre of super will rise by 13 shillings and 51 cents to 196 shillings and 21 cents. Okay, so let's take a look at the ticker now. And I see here what reopening of Kenya-Somalia border means for the economy. Court stops KRA from doubling excise stamp taxes. The court has handed manufacturers temporary relief after blocking the Kenya Revenue Authority from doubling excise stamp taxes on beer, bottled water, and cosmetics. And M-Copper secures record 35 billion shillings for expansion. Solar and asset financing firm M-Copper has secured 35 billion shillings financing and new debt and equity from Standard Bank and Japanese-based trading house Sumitomo Corporation, among others, for expansion in sub-Saharan Africa. Let's take a look at Taifa Leo front page. And this is what they have in store. Zoom in a bit further. No, that's good. Serikali yazidi kufinya raia. An image there of border operators, what appears to be Mtumba behind them. Let me see where this is. Kongowea. This is Kongowea in the county of Mombasa. I also see maziwa ya Kenyatta kutoingia nchini. Bidhaa hiyo kutoka Uganda ya kosa kibali kuuzwa Kenya. And Pastor Ezekiel kuzidi kusota. Mahakama kuu yakataa kutoa agizo kufungua akaunti zake zenye mamilioni. Okay, so that is the Taifa Leo on the cost of living. Let's take a look now at the Standard. And this is what they have for us today. On tax, they tell us Ruto is between a rock and a hard place. An image of the president during that interview at State House, Nairobi. President was hard-pressed to explain the new levies he wants to introduce when the cost of living is at an all-time high, with experts wondering about the economic rationale of the proposed taxation measures. I delved deep into this subject with my panelists, economists, yesterday. You can find the full show on NTV Kenya's YouTube channel. Here is what the Standard highlights as contentious is the 35% new income tax rate on Kenyans earning 500,000 shillings per month, up from 30%. 16% proposed VAT on fuel that will push the prices of petrol up by up to 15 shillings, and 3% is the amount to be deducted from salaries to go towards the housing fund. I also see on the front page they've highlighted the changes at KEMSA. Health PS, KEMSA bosses fired over 4 billion shilling nets scandal, and they have an image of the former now public health PS Josephine Mburu, KEMSA chairperson Daniel Rono, and KEMSA CEO Terry Ramadhani. Hustlers to feel heat of sharp fuel price increase. And I see on page 10 they tell us judges don't force learners to pray when in school. At the very top of the page here, villages Mackenzie was chased from before Shakahola. Banks to auction properties as defaults hit 39 billion shilling. That is truly troubling. Let's take a look now at the Star. And front page of the Star. Ruto fires PS KEMSA board over tender. The man in question is all smiles here, holding a football. President William Ruto, after unveiling the East African Community Pamoja bid for the Africa Cup of Nations 2027 at State House, Nairobi. A day after he swore to clean KEMSA after alleged scandal, the president did take that action. The persons in question are here, Josephine Buru, KEMSA chairman Irungu Nyakera, and KEMSA CEO Terry Ramadhani, now suspended and replaced. Okay, so that is the front page of the Star, but interesting story here. Fertilizer subsidy in limbo over 14.7 billion shillings deficit. The ambitious fertilizer subsidy program is in limbo as the ministry decries a 14.7 billion budget deficit. Crop Development PS Kelo Harsama yesterday told MPs the project will be dealt a huge blow given Treasury's allocation for the next financial year. He said the budgetary requirement for its rollout was 19.2 billion shillings. So let me just reintroduce you to my panelists and get their thoughts on the top stories, in particular, more particularly, the rise in the cost of fuel and further projected rise once the 16% VAT comes into effect should the Finance Bill 2023 go through, as well as I'm curious whether they are eager, willing to contribute to the 3% of the housing levy to the housing fund. With me in studio this morning, we have Celestine Njagi, advocate of the High Court of Kenya, certified mediator. We have Sylvia Mulama, who is a women and youth advocate, and joining us virtually, we have Achieng Osogo, governance and political analyst. Vivian, I saved you for last because I want you to kick us off. Vivian Tah, governance and political analyst. Vivian, your thoughts on the rise in the cost of fuel and the further projected rise? Business Daily, if you take a look at your Business Daily, they tell us it'll fall just short once the 16% VAT comes into force, assuming the finance bill is passed as it is now. It'll go up to just shy of 200. They are the figures, just shy of 200 shillings. Per litre.
It's crazy, Olive. I mean, I know it's our responsibility. Every Kenyan has a responsibility to pay tax. But I think the issue that most Kenyans have is, are we getting value for the taxes we are paying? It feels as though only a few benefit, and majority, as much as you contribute to the tax, one way or another, either through excise duty or VAT or pay as you earn or any other tax that's levied, but we don't get value for it. And then the saddest thing is, you know, this government came with, you know, crazy, huge promises of change. And now with the cost of living, you know, being so high, you know, you want to increase taxes of basic items. You know, when you tax fuel or increase taxes in fuel, that has a ripple effect on everything, on transport, on cost of goods, on food, basically everything, electricity. So I don't know how we're going to survive because I know incomes haven't gone up. So I'm not sure how things are going to be. And also just seeing how even government itself is facing delays in paying civil servants. And not just government, like so many industries are affected. So I don't know, I don't know how Kenya Kwanza wants us to live. I don't know how, it feels like they really want to squeeze and milk us dry. And then I don't know how now we will survive. It seems like the only people who are going to be left, you know, managing to stay afloat are maybe people in government. But right now, I saw in the supermarket yesterday, I think the average cost of unga is around 200 averagely. So it's like, and now they've not even effected the 16% VAT on fuel. When that comes into effect, everything will increase. I don't know what employers will have to say about salaries, because how will people be able to maintain or take care of themselves if incomes remain the same, but everything, the cost goes up, like school fees, fuel, food, transport, everything, basically, the basic things that people use. So as much as, yes, it is our responsibility to pay taxes, I think what we want to see is transparency in how maybe tax is collected and used and utilized, and of course equitable distribution, because you don't want to be contributing to tax, but you're not seeing how it's helping. I saw the president compared Kenya to South Africa and like Morocco, you know, saying they are more taxed than us. But you can't compare those economies. You cannot compare the service delivery, the level of service delivery that the citizens are getting with us. So I think what we want to see is, if you're going to tax us, we need to sort out corruption, first of all. We don't want to be paying tax and money is going into just a few people. And even this notion of government is a company. If it is a company, then let the people who are shareholders pay tax, and let the ones who are not pay. But if it's for all of us, then it needs to, everybody needs to feel like there's something in it for me.
Okay. Yeah. I don't want to preempt the shareholding conversation. Yeah,
I'm just,
but no, but it's okay.
Because of a tax,
yeah,
like from a tax perspective.
I get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
I get where you're coming from. Sylvia, the last time we were together, you were joining us. You're the one who was joining us virtually.
Yes, I was.
From the United Kingdom. And I remember I was asking you what you made of Harry's memoirs. His book had just come out. We were here together with you as well, Vivian, weren't we?
In the studio,
so, you know, she's saying you can't compare Kenya's economy. Vivian says you can't compare Kenya's economy to some of these other countries that the president was comparing the GDP to debt ratio with. But oil marketers are thrilled, you know, given the delays that have been experienced as far as them getting their refunds on the subsidies that were extended by government. But there was a Kenyan who, you know, he was very, the way he phrased his view was humorous. You know, he said, you know, William Ruto is a doctor, Dr. William Ruto, so, but not a medical doctor. So he should understand, you know, that you can't stay hungry. But generally, your thoughts, your views.
You know, personally, I think for the first time, and not just for this government, I think President Mwai Kibaki was one of the presidents that also tried to build Kenya on a solid rock. What we've been going through seemed very good. It seemed very okay for the government to be going forward. Of course, we had a lot of infrastructural programs in the past 10 years, but quite frankly, the country has been sinking slowly. We do not have a base of where, as a country, we are strong enough to even say that we can, you know, be able to compete on an international level. Firstly, because we do not harvest our money from the rightful places. We have been living off of borrowing, and that is really, really dangerous. As it were, we were at the brink of bankruptcy, and that's the reality, and that's the truth. So what happens if your own homestead is at the brink of bankruptcy? You go back to the reset and rejig your planning and how you earn money. There's only 3 ways we can earn money as a nation: through manufacturing, through tax collection, and through agriculture. The president or the Kenya Kwanza government is working on agriculture at its hardest. We have to revive our agriculture. When I was a young girl, when I was growing up, agriculture was vibrant. There was no bursaries at the time, but our parents afforded to pay school fees because they knew how to make do with their salaries and also side hustles off the farming. It was enough. Tax collection. There's a lot of evasive tax collectors, tax payers. People don't want to pay taxes. But now that, you know, the heat is coming, everybody has to pay taxes. We're hearing people complaining about it. Manufacturing. The Cabinet Secretary, Moses Kuria, is working up and down every single day to make sure that we reinvent our wheel, bring all our Rivertex back, all the companies that were manufacturing in Kenya years ago that made our spinning wheel move.
If I may,
to revive them.
Is it then not counterintuitive, if you'd like to revive the manufacturing sector,
yes,
to then increase the tax on fuel?
Yes, so the fuel is a whole different dimension. The problem with the fuel is not just even us alone. We have a problem of fuel because we do not have fuel of our own. We do not produce crude oil, and neither do we process any fuel in this country. So we depend on imports. Our fuel is all coming from abroad. So there's also the dollar aspect of it, which is affecting the amount of money we pay on the fuel. And that's why recently the government of Kenya, through the president, signed an agreement with Saudi Arabia so that we can buy the fuel directly. But that's not going to be in effect until 9 months later. It's not right now. So when that falls into effect, then we will start to see ease at the fuel pump, because now we will be buying fuel directly in the Kenyan shilling as opposed to the dollar.
Is it not already in effect?
No, it's not. It was supposed to be 9 months later. We can review that here.
Oh, I'll confirm. Let me
Yes.
confirm. Let me confirm.
Yes. So that in itself is something that is already work in progress. Then, you know, when you look at the tax collection in itself, and the president explained himself clearly, when you have other people paying 18% and 16%, and others are paying 8%,